Hi Mum! You do everything for everyone else. Let me help you make your life easier. Quick, short information to make you empowered and remind you why you are so important. Because if you don't know what's on the menu, how can you choose what's right for you? Hi, I'm Alina, Director of my private practice Supportive Therapy, an everyday Aussie mum trying not to lose my biscuits at my kids. As a mental health professional, I'm here to share my secrets so no other mother feels alone or powerless. Knowledge is power, and I want you to be powerful. Think of it like I'm your mindset coach through all of this. Everything is backed by science and psychology. I believe in you, and I want you to be the best version of yourself. To be happy and to feel in control, you need to be mentally strong. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Mentally Strong Mums, and this one's a very, very special one just because lately, end of year, mums are burnt out, we're just tired, we're overwhelmed. There seems to be too much to do or not enough time, and then sometimes I know all the stuff, but I just don't want to do it. Do you know what I mean? And it's that the procrastination paralysis. You know, it's the mental fatigue of everything that's going on, especially if you still have to work and get everything organised. And then you've got the bedtime, bath time, dinner routine, all of that stuff. And it's so difficult to put people to bed that don't want to go to bed, and the person putting them to bed is the only one that wants to go to bed, right? So lately, the reoccurring theme in my office with my clients is they feel like they're failing, is they feel this is too hard, this feels too difficult, I feel like I'm not doing the best. So obviously, I'd like to be able to put things into perspective. And so when we look at now, I want to validate mums as to how hard it is to parent children now than in the 80s or the 90s, right? So if you've ever looked at your own parents or your own grandparents and thought, why does it feel so much heavier for me than it seems for them, right? So we're going to have a look at why this day and age is more emotionally, is more mentally, and more socially demanding than ever before, and then how to hold more self-compassion for yourself as a parent instead of the guilt and shame. So you think historically back then, research was limited, therapy wasn't normalized, social media didn't exist, right? Trauma was not a word that was used in everyday conversations. Attachment theory hadn't reached the mainstream. And even for some people today and some people listening to this, they're still not sure what attachment theory is, right? If you go on my YouTube channel, in the very beginning, there's a attachment theory clip that I made. So that's a good starting point for people as well. So parenting in the 80s was governed generally by a simple rule: do better than your parents did. Okay, so that might have meant fewer smacks, warmer dinners, and sometimes a little bit more praise, right? Regulation, nervous system, and emotional literacy weren't terms that were known of back in the day, right? Neurodivergence was barely recognized, let alone supported. So your ADHD, ADD, sensory processing disorder, if you're on the spectrum, a little bit of autism. So, like, I'm not shaming the previous generations. This is the reality. They just didn't know better because society, culture, research, mainstream social media wasn't there to educate them and to push them along, right? So they essentially parented with that instincts, the convenience, culture, or discipline of what either their parents did or the people around them were doing, right? But today, sometimes it feels like we know too much, and that then becomes really heavy. So you think today we're flooded with Instagram reels on gentle parenting or different parenting styles, that you should do this. No, you should do this kind of parenting style. Oh no, you need to do this parenting style, right? You've even got a literal hashtag trauma talks. On TikTok, there's a hashtag trauma talk, and all these different ways that you can diagnose your own kids and yourselves in 60 seconds, right? podcasts just like this about trauma-informed everything. There's so many labels. There's sensory avoidant, there's PDA, ADHD, anxious avoidant, emotional neglect, or all of these other kinds of things, right? Plus as well, when you have a look, there's these people that want these beautiful Instagram or Pinterest-worthy lunches, or these Montessori playrooms, or even if you need a break or whatever it looks like, you then get screen time shame for wanting to just let your kids watch TV or just have a screen here or just have a device here. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it feels like we're so hyper-focused and so hyper-aware on what not to do and what might go wrong if we do it wrong, right? So even though that awareness is powerful, it can be exhausting. So even a mum the other day, and I had 3 mums in 1 week that were having this reoccurring theme, and they all had little girls. And it was the end of the day, and it was bath time, where all the mum wanted to was have a bath. Well, we've had dinner, have a bath and go to bed. But then in that, you don't want to yell. You've got to ask for consent. You've got to have secure attachment. They've got to be autonomous. You can't do it when you don't raise your voice. Don't get upset. You got to. Do you know what I mean? Just 3 mums in 1 week had the same thing, and it was just exhausting. Do you know what I mean? And if they don't do it, they're going to get in trouble. Or if I don't follow through, I'm going to all the pressures that we put in ourselves, right? So you're not just raising children. You're trying to raise securely attached, emotionally resilient, neurobiologically regulated little humans while trying to heal your own childhood wounds, sometimes, and it feels like with no village. And if your partner sometimes isn't on the same page, your partner is a man, he's masculine, he's dominated by testosterone. He has a different approach to things. Sometimes that's helpful, sometimes that's not helpful. Sometimes if he didn't have a good template either, then and I didn't have a good template, then it's really a lot. Sometimes if I've done all the research for everything, but then he hasn't, that then causes resentment. And then sometimes if I feel like I'm trying to educate them on the what to do and what not to do, he will then have resentment on me. Don't be my mum. Stop telling me what to do. Why do I always do everything wrong? When really the mum is drowning with all of this information, with trying to be able to manage. And especially in this economy, it's pretty much a two working household to survive and to get ahead. It's not generally heard of where mums can kind of have the luxury to stay at home and not to work, you know. I'm not judging anyone. I don't care. Do you know? I'm just saying for those households that don't have the luxury to be able to have a choice of the mum to stay at home, if our household or our suburb or our economy is in the position where we need 2 people to work and you don't have a choice about that, then that's also going to cause extra pressure for everyone. And then it's still all these modern day problems as well, right? And obviously the pressure is unrelenting sometimes. In the 80s, no one judged your parenting at school pickup because they didn't see it, right? Kids can just get out of the house and go do what you want. There was no phones. You didn't know where they were. And then they just came home by dinner, right? Sometimes in this day and age, you feel like you're silently compared by what lunchbox you use. How many times have you heard all those stories of people and mums being chastised for the things they put in the lunchboxes? It's got to be healthy, no preservatives, nothing in packets, environmentally friendly, no plastics. Do you know what I mean? All of these extracurricular things as well we should do. So the after school things, the tutoring, if they're dyslexic, all of this other kind of stuff. And then the sports and gosh, right? The swimming, all of the stuffs. Not to mention the cost associated with all of that. And then if your kid has a diagnosis but then still misbehaves, do you know what I mean? And how difficult that is. And then if you get frustrated in public, you can't have a meltdown, you can't yell at your kid. It's like you're feel like you're being silently judged, right? Sometimes it's even as silly as like if your kids' shoes aren't labeled properly. You know what I mean? It's really, really difficult for a mum in this day and age sometimes just to get through the day, to feel like they're doing everything right, to not get in trouble. And it depends on obviously your socioeconomic status, where you live, who you're surrounded by. Um, all of that dictates as well as to the expectations of the people and the culture that you're surrounded by, okay? So sometimes there's no off switch from the expectations. And for many mums, those expectations are internalized, where you're not trying to impress anyone. You just want to do it right because you care, because you don't want to raise your kid to be the way that you feel now. So you're trying everything in your power to be able to right the perceived wrongs, or to connect, or to, and whatever that looks like, right? Realizing, though, perfection does not exist. Imagine even if it did exist, how boring and predictable everything would be, right? Realizing as well, sometimes parenting isn't a performance either. And those mums that put so much pressure on themselves, it can be really hard. Obviously, your anxiety's off tap. You know what I mean? So this is a lovely time that when you can meet the right people to inspire you, you can actually reparent yourselves through parenting your children. Okay? So this generation of mothers, even though it's difficult and hard and it's overwhelming and it's saturated with information, this generation of mums and people like you that are listening to this podcast, you're breaking generational cycles, often without formal support. So you're learning to validate your child's emotions if you never had yours validated. You're responding with calm and peace and being present, even though when you were little, you might have been yelled at or ignored. You're now making conscious choices while sometimes fighting the unconscious shame and self-doubt of it all. And that's all the emotional labor. That's the mental load of everything. And it's 24/7. Do you know what I mean? Realizing as well with our younger kids and what they're going through, the language that's normalized, today's kids are also more complex. And obviously so are we. So we're also parenting in a world that's faster, more anxious, sometimes even more overstimulating. Okay, so more children are being identified with neurodiversity, whether neurodiversity always existed or the education about signs and symptoms are more well known. Okay, social media impacts kids as young as 5. Do you know? So that also contributes to how they feel, being overstimulated, their vocabulary, their regulation, right? School systems also feel more rigid, while life can be more chaotic. And I think, as I said before, sometimes it feels like we're working more, but because we're working more, we've got more to do, therefore we're sleeping less, and we're living further away from our family support, from our little villages. And especially Australians are generally an individualistic society, where we kind of do everything on our own, as opposed to this collective community, like other cultures around the world, where 3 generations live in a house, or we all live in the same block, or we're all supported together and this person shares this one. And when one person earns income, it's shared within the family. When Australians, we're a very individualistic culture, right? Also, with all of these pressures, that means that sometimes our nervous systems are more frayed. So our children needs are more visible. And if we're overstimulated, it's difficult to be able to regulate and calm ourselves and then be more present for them. Imagine talking to your mum back in the day about this terminology. Even interestingly, telling her today what you know and trying to describe it to her, and if she understands. Do you know what I mean? So that's also just understanding the generational differences. There's going to be positives and negatives, but you think if you have a look from their perspective, they were doing well compared to the way that they were raised. Do you know what I mean? So we're just having this bigger understanding, and you've got to start having compassion for yourself as to why today it's very hard and it's very difficult to be able to just sometimes parent. Do you know what I mean? So you are carrying more than any previous generation could ever have imagined, all right? So acknowledging that, yes, this is harder. You're not imagining it. Don't gaslight yourself. The emotional, mental, and social labor of parenting definitely has increased. And as I kind of tipped on before with men, this will be the first generation of men that are expected to actually parent in the household, because every other generation of men were generally expected to be the breadwinner and to mow the lawns. They weren't expected to be a parent, to be involved, to all of that stuff. So it's also difficult for men. Obviously, women, it's difficult for you. But if you've got a good man and they're trying their best, but they don't have a template or a blueprint as to what a dad is or what a dad should be, because this is the first generation of men that have to be a parent and a father when their parents weren't there for them, that their mum was, but their dad wasn't. Do you know what I mean? So it's nice to just see things from a new perspective and understand the reality of the world that you live in, okay? So giving yourself permission to be good enough. Sometimes that's all I just sometimes want to be good enough, okay? So we understand, and I've spoken about this before, when we have conflict, so there's a thing called rupture and repair, if you've heard this for the first time with me. Rupture is like a little volcano, which is a conflict, a disagreement, or an argument. Repair is like this little snow that goes over the volcano to calm everything down. Rupture and repair, right? Presence over perfection. Perfection's overrated anyways. It's boring and it's never going to exist. But if you can be present in the moment and breathe and talk and look at your kids in the eyes and hear what they are saying, be more present. Same with yourself, same with your hubbies, right? Or your partner, gender neutral, all inclusive. That's the thing for me as well. I always have to be able to change my language and to make sure that I'm making everyone inclusive and to feel safe and secure, that I'm accidentally not triggering anyone, okay? So empathy over expertise. If you can just be empathetic for yourself, for your kids, right? Parenting today is different, not because you're failing, but because you're pioneering. You're doing it with more knowledge, more pressure, more insight, and more expectations. Generally, half of the time, the expectations are your own, okay? So you are essentially the circuit breaker, the cycle breaker, the emotionally intelligent one, the emotionally regulated one, the emotionally mature one. You are parenting from awareness, not autopilot. And that is only not brave, it is generationally revolutionary. Okay, so keep going. You're not alone. Some days you have a bad day. Some days things won't go as you expected. It's okay. Try again tomorrow. And as I say, sometimes I have an F day or a D minus or a C minus day. And then I'm going to try again tomorrow, and then maybe I'll have an A plus day, you know. But A plus isn't going to be consistent either, okay? So look after yourself. Thank you so much for being able to be here with me. Please be kind. It is a lot harder than the 80s. We have a lot of expectations on us, a lot of pressures, and we're the woke generation. Do you know what I mean? So are your kids. And that's the fear of all of this as well, because imagine what it's like today when your kids are at a certain age. They're going to be able to diagnose and understood the childhood trauma you've put on them. Do you know what I mean? So if you can be the best version of yourself and try your best, but realizing we all have limits with everything as well, being realistic about what it is. And we're taking accountability for everything as well. Obviously, I've had these conversations with my kids, and I've had to apologize for things that I did when they were younger, or that made them upset, or that might have caused trauma for them, okay? So I have these conversations with my kids. I take accountability for what I've done. I've done obviously all the research and everything as well. And I'm not even halfway there yet, you know? But I think this is life. And it's this constant evolution because we deserve better and we deserve happiness and we don't want to be stagnant. And we want our loved ones to come along with us. All right, I'll start rubbing on. Have a great day. Bye.